Hi, I'm Paul Santinello. Welcome to this episode of The Upside as we christen the new studios here at Longmeadow Community Television. And today I'm here with two of my favorite guests, returning guests on the show. Rob Rizzuto, who's the assistant managing editor of the Republican MassLive. Did I say that right? Yep, I got it all in? Okay, I won't tell people that you tell me that you're in charge, but we know that's true. And then Tony Cignoli, who's president of Cignoli Co and international political consultant. Welcome, guys. And I couldn't think of a better show to kick off the new set here at LCTV.
Cool. Thanks for having us.
It's probably three most handsome, distinguished gentlemen they're ever going to have on this set. But anyway, welcome. It's been a while since we talked about politics. Conventions are starting to come up, right? Election year in Massachusetts coming up, and there's obviously going to be some races, and even locally, it looks like some challengers are stepping up for races that may not have had a real challenger in years and things like that. So I want to start at the 60,000 foot level here and look down on presidential politics, and especially with my friend here in the media. At what point in time do people get tired of hearing everything negative that's going on in this country? And I say this from looking at everything that, I find that it's interesting that Donald Trump was controlled by the Russians during the election, yet is kind of handling the Russians in the presidency. He was going to blow up the world by attacking North Korea, and now you have North Korea coming to a negotiating table and stuff. Has something changed in the media where the negativity is just so ongoing right now? I mean, there's never really good news that's talked about. Because I think the thing with North Korea is actually a good news item as opposed to a bad news item. I mean, to bring someone to a table to talk about.
I think perspective probably jurisdicts was good news or bad news. As to the question, when do people get tired of negativity? I can't answer that question, but the negativity will probably stop being reported when it stops being true. It's so pervasive right now, not necessarily negativity or positivity, but the chaos. It's his style of governance. Mm-hmm. I think and it feeds into the 24-hour news cycle. You have...
is that a surprise, though, with this guy?
No, not at all.
No, right? I mean, no.
Look at the campaign, when he was the unlikely challenger.
Right.
It was the same type of thing. Did he say that? You can't believe it. Tune in at 11.
Right.
And it kind of perpetuates and feeds, but... with these kind of daily stories, I mean, now with, his lawyer, Michael Cohen, Sean Hannity, it's all, to anybody who might be watching that's a fan of WWE, it's a television storyline.
Right.
It's an ongoing thing. It's a TV show, and but it's our national political system, and it's been ripped open and kind of dissected, and we're seeing the internal workings. I think we see this with every president, but with his style of governance, I think it lends to the types of stories that you're seeing. So I don't think it's necessarily negativity or positivity. It's just he likes the chaos. He said it.
But do you think people are and I don't mean, again, this perspective of what side of the aisle you're on or whatever, but does that get old after a while, that people start tuning out? Because the only thing constant about what's going on in Washington is that it's constantly changing. The story's changing every day. Mm. And like you said, it's whatever he tweets out in the morning becomes news for and I think a lot of that's purposeful, in my opinion, that it becomes news for 2 or 3 days and then it's on to the next subject,
Absolutely.
Right? But I mean, do you think people get tired of that in general?
Absolutely.
It's just another
They
story?
do. I think they do, especially, in the heartlands where folks are worried about other things, whether it be, gosh, I got to plant this crop, or I've got to worry about my children's bills or our family's, mortgage, et cetera, and whatnot. At some point, a lot of folks do start to turn out because it becomes too much. It's the same almost every day. And this is overwhelming. We've never seen anything quite like this. It is overwhelming. I like what you said. Did we expect anything different? No, not after that campaign. Right. And it's just stunning to see this 24/7 cycle. I mean, it's every 5 seconds, it seems, something new is coming out. Yeah. And the other piece of this, too, is that there are some people tuning in even more because they like the rock 'em and the sock 'em. It's entertainment, And that's another piece of this, too. For the media, for a lot of folks out there in the media, they may rail against Trump or hate him or report correctly about some of the insanity of what's going on. But on the other side of this is great for numbers. It's great for advertising. Check out the next time you watch any of the national broadcasts, the 24/7s, how many more commercials they have to fit in between their stops. Yeah. They're actually adding right now. It's out there. And if you're an advertiser, it's the place to be. One good thing that comes out of all this again too is that hunkering down, that wanting for news. Give me something fresh, give me something new. all the stuff that we're seeing, it's not as fun to watch or to stay on top. It is more fun to watch and stay on top of than some of the other things that are happening in Washington. How many people would be worried or concerned about, House Bill 4444, right? It's on pensions. What's happening with the pension crisis. It's the driest read I've ever had. No offense to Congressman Neal, who filed it, 148 members of the Congress signed on to this thing bipartisanly, but it's not hot. It's not exciting. On the other hand, it affects anybody who's got a pension issue coming up, and yet no one's aware of it because we're more worried about, gosh, what did Ivanka do today? Or, geez Louise, how did Melania handle
all the way to the characters?
Yeah, exactly. It's the characters and whatnot. It's Shakespearean. It really is at this point, yeah.
But it's also, the presidency has actually been a revival, as Tony said, for the media, though, right? I mean, because now numbers are up and people are actually reading and tuning in to where...
I think I said it on here before, especially when it comes to national media. Controversy creates cash. It does.
I love that line, yeah.
It's totally true. If it's bizarre, interesting, exciting, whatever it is, people are interested, just like we're interested to report it. And with this cast of characters and the storyline, it's like Shakespearean, I think, is the best description I've heard. It's a story.
Yeah. All right, so that's our national political scene. But here in Massachusetts, I think the numbers came out again that Charlie Baker is the most popular governor in the country and
like on Earth.
On Earth, yeah. In the world, ever. And I have an idea of why those numbers are where they are, but we'll leave that for another day. But when it comes to state politics, and I don't see him having a formidable challenge from the Democrat side. I mean, there's a potential for a Republican primary, but it's a same type of opponent that he's had in the past that'll garner the 15-20% or whatever. But on the flip side of it, there's a lot of races that are underneath that. And I would think that, and I want to hear what you guys thought, when you have the most popular governor in the country, in the world, and whatever, is that going to translate to Republican victories in some of these races in November?
Perhaps some.
It could, yeah, depends. Depends on what shakes and goes on. You see him picking and choosing. He's got the opportunity, because he's got all this political capital and favorability, to pick and choose where he goes. So to that degree, I hear from a lot of Republicans, a lot of party members, folks who've been at it, who haven't just been around during the popular days or the good days, who, the state committee folks, et cetera, that they're unhappy with him in that regard because he's not out there blanket across the board. He's picking and choosing. On the other side of that, when you're a Republican in a Democratic state, or really an independent state, because there are more independents than there are Democrats or Republicans now registered in Massachusetts, you've got to play that a little bit. You've got to pick and choose. It's clear where he is in the race against Senator Warren. He's with Beth Lindstrom, and he's made that very clear. And we've seen him pick and choose. You're right, Paul. A few House and Senate races to this point. Does he come out and support everybody? Does he, who knows what comes from that at this point. But this is a different Charlie Baker than the one that ran the first time. And maybe they're looking at that formula for success the second time, as to playing it smarter, so to speak. Is it something that Republican Party stalwarts are happy with? Not really. But again, it's appealing to the broader mass and the bigger numbers. One thought on that too, he wins re-election, maybe you see a different Republican Charlie Baker. Maybe you see him more comfortable to do things that he might not have attempted or maybe have feared doing in the first go-around. And I think you're right in the Democrats too. At this point right now, 2006, DeVal Patrick was roaring from 6 points, no one knew who this guy was, right, to challenge and take out Tom Riley, who was at 48 points. And it was at this time, right around the caucuses, that DeVal surprised everybody and all of a sudden became a candidate. Really not seeing that on the Democratic side. No one's breaking out, so to speak, just yet.
And then what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't see the Democrats having a clear strategy for victory. I know it's early and we haven't got to the primary, even the convention yet, but the state party, we haven't seen very much from them at all. Ever since, arguably whether Charlie Baker or Martha Coakley, did the most damage to the Massachusetts Democratic Party, ever since 2014, it's kind of been up and down and there hasn't been much. And this year in particular, I can tell you on the media side, we haven't seen very much at all. Almost radio silence.
You see unique pockets too in certain areas. Again, that old adage of all politics being local. Long Meadow, the Long Meadow Democratic Town Committee. outstanding, known across the state, and year after year producing and actually even exporting help and exporting money into campaigns and whatnot. Candy Glazer is the head of the committee, a player. But you don't see that emulated all over the rest of the Commonwealth. That would make a difference for one of the Democrats if those kinds of committees were out there, those kinds of ground organizations and whatnot. Just not seeing that, Paul. And the other race that I think is going to be hot right now, I think it's going to get hotter, is the Secretary of State piece. A lot of people will look at that and go, that's not as hot and sensational or fun as governor, right? But it's super important because it's not just voting day. It's everything from the Massachusetts Historical Commission that the Secretary controls. And if you live in places like Springfield or Longmeadow or Holyoke, that makes a difference to you with our older homes and all that. And it's like, I think it's going to be a hot race. Josh Zakem, young guy, Boston City Councilor, the Zakem Bridge, named for his dad, a player, challenging the long-sitting Secretary of State. And the crazy piece of this, too, on the Democrat or Republican side, when it comes time for the primaries, the election is September 4th. It's the day after Labor Day. That's stunning to me, how do you get folks out? There's a good reason for it. The Secretary did not want to schedule on the day it would have been because of the Jewish holidays, and that made sense. You had to do that. But I think we saw something in the Coachee race or the sheriff's race, the primary. You do it on a Thursday, people are still going to come out if it's a good campaign and if they want to vote. So.
Yeah. So does 2018 become the race between Charlie Baker and Liz Warren? Is that the race to watch? Because I know he's not running against her, but like you said, he's backing Beth Lindstrom. If you're going to put your money on the horse, so to speak, as the governor, you have a reputation on the line, don't you?
I think he's got an angle there. Yeah. Absolutely. It'll be interesting to see how much of that translates to people saying, I'm going to give her a shot over Elizabeth Warren when her favorability statewide is pretty decent.
Yeah.
I can't off the top of my head remember what the most recent numbers are, but I think folks are pretty satisfied here. So that, plus considering her national profile, plus, let's be honest, there's a lot of money.
It's national though.
Yeah. Big cash. Even if the National Republicans pump cash in, which they're expected to, it's that's a really
her last number
race.
was what, 15 million or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's today.
Yeah.
That's not even in the heat of the race.
Yeah.
Right.
And if it got hot, you'd see so much more money come in nationally too.
Yeah.
She's become the standard bearer for the Democratic Party and for a lot of organizations and groups that are out there that are knowledgeable in how to take out the pen and write the check.
Yeah.
So the reason I asked that question is, my belief is that both of those people, Charlie Baker and Liz Warren, both have national aspirations. And that's why I asked if you have the race between, I know Beth Lindstrom, she's the person running, but you're really, as the governor, you're trying to test your own viability in maybe a potential national office.
It's interesting. I had not thought of it till now, but my gut is that the governor, that his great advisor, Karen Polito, even better than his political consultants, would think about this. If Lindstrom started to show some fire, if there was an opportunity, if they knew, that there was an opportunity to win with Lindstrom over Warren, now they've got a national story. They've got a huge story. As big as the story of Scott Brown, succeeding, beating Coakley for the Ted Kennedy seat, Ted Kennedy's seat. But yeah, it's a possibility, but I think that Baker's very, very cautious, and I don't think we're seeing that fire still yet from Lindstrom. And gosh, it's the middle of April at this point. By now, you should be seeing something a little bit more clearly from all the candidates that are out there right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to agree as far as where we are in the election year and the campaign season, and not seeing a lot of people saying, I'm going to go for it. And Beth Lindstrom in particular, everyone that I've met everyone I've talked to who's met her has been very impressed. And they say, wow, she really impressed me. But has she been out there on a big scale? No, not really, not yet. So I think that absolutely hurts her.
A couple weeks ago, she had a national exposure on a business program. Talking about taxes and her campaign and stuff, which you haven't seen from the other two Republicans running at that level, so to speak.
Right.
All right. So let me ask you this: the big thing, and before we talk about local politics, casinos coming in September. And I know you're directly affected about it, where your office is in terms of, that's almost like ground zero where the casino is, and a lot of excitement coming from it, right? A lot of good things that are happening from it. What's your take on what's happened in the city of Springfield since, personally, I wasn't in favor of casino. I don't think it's the right business in terms of, and I think the city of Springfield had to do certain things, and the casino is one of them. but it wouldn't have been my first choice to go put a business somewhere downtown. But it is what it is. There's a lot of construction, a lot of ancillary things that are going on because of it that are positive. What do you think? How do you think it's going down there?
I think as of right now, there's been a lot of ancillary developments.
Yeah.
I think there's been a lot of people saying, if a company like MGM is going to invest, $1 billion in Springfield, maybe I should consider it too. I think it's fair to say that it has been a big boon for the Western Massachusetts economy, Springfield in particular. I think that there's been a lot of developments, a lot of employers expanding, opening up shop. This is all politics as well that leads to these things, but I think so far it's been pretty positive.
Yeah, my gut is the same, but of course, as we sit here, there's a lot of other news going on about MGM, whether it be even national from the Wall Street Journal, others, phenomenal coverage from MassLive and the Republican, breaking news, especially over the last week on different things and developments that are happening. And I don't think it's, I've been amazed by what MGM has done in keeping their word here. And I always try to, full disclosure and recuse myself, I have been at this with Hard Rock for Springfield. And there was a point when Hard Rock said, we can't get this done. We can't do what MGM is willing to do. Not just on the state level, but given the host agreement that Mayor Sarno put forth, which was stunning. And it's ironclad. If MGM were to leave Springfield, anyone that might take their place must honor that host agreement, must make all the payments, do all the things, not just for Springfield, but Long Meadow, Holyoke, etc.
Yeah.
And I've been stunned watching MGM the last month or so, and obviously having looked at this with a different player, being impressed with them that we could not do what they were going to offer to do, and what they've done so far, the money that they've spent here already. Just the other day, and I think that your paper is the first that touched on this, $772,000 to the Hamden County Sheriff's Department for the move on the Mill Street jail, which was caused by their construction. And then you just start adding up all the rest of it. There's an impact. But where are we right now as we sit here? It would be, in a business sense or in a gaming sense, off the wall and almost ludicrous not to expect them to take a look at an opportunity that's open in Boston.
Yeah.
And then what does that mean for us here? How does this work and whatnot? I think they'll be conscious of the bottom line and their shareholders and the stock market and Wall Street and how that's viewed. But I think they'll also be very careful of their public relations here too, Paul. And that they have invested so much here. They've got to finish the project as well too before they can, sell it to someone if that were to happen.
Yeah.
The other part of it too is, this is so speculative about Boston, but I give them credit. They didn't deny when asked, yeah, we're looking, so they didn't hide that when it finally was asked by legitimate media sources, the Republican MassLive. I can't remember now if it was Dan Glahn or who hit that exact story, but also, when the Journal, Wall Street Journal and others came calling, they basically said, yeah, we're taking a look.
Yeah.
So who knows what will come?
Yeah,
It's a great story. It puts us on the map, no matter what happens.
Yeah,
Springfield's
One
being talked
positive
about.
impact, if you take a look at what's happened with the Thunderbirds, the hockey team.
That's huge.
And there's a difference when,
Unbelievable.
there was corporate support for hockey in Springfield for a long time, but not quite like that.
Yeah.
And you see what happens, why communities want these types of businesses in there, because the money that gets funneled over. And it's a different crowd that's down there maybe than traditionally, maybe not the purest hockey crowd, so to speak, but it's entertainment. It doesn't matter that it's not the purest hockey crowd because you're bringing kids and families down there.
Family fun.
Yeah.
It really
They're
is.
doing really cool things. I mean,
Yeah.
on a level that we haven't seen perhaps in a long time.
Right.
The crowds down there for these games are unbelievable. We shoot photos at most of the home games, and I can tell you that from shooting the Falcons, versus trying not to showcase an empty stadium versus just tons of people, cross demographic. Like it's good family fun.
Right.
I'm thinking back to a little work we used to do just to help out in the old days, with the former in the Falcons and even before them. And I just came across something in one of my files today, some letters between myself and Stu Hurwitz, who was the head of the Civic Center, and Bruce Landon, and trying to pump things up in 2001, the new opening of the Civic Center. What can we do to get this all fired up? And all the players were involved, business folks, and they tried so hard. But now this new team, stunning. And by that I mean the folks that are promoting, the Thunderbirds. They're doing everything right. It's family fun. You feel safe when you're downtown. That's a different feeling right now too, is that there's a concentration on hockey night. It's hockey night, All of a sudden, there's the cruisers, the lights are on, the officers are in the street.
Amazing.
It's amazing. It's a great big, well-organized thing that's going on between city, the owners, the rest, but then the fans too. And it says something too, because God bless these fans. They're coming downtown. They'll fight to find a parking spot. Yeah. It's still the same Civic Center garage. It's a horror story and whatnot. But if you build it, they'll come if it's hot, if they want it, and that's what they're doing. It's stunning. And Paul, I think you're on target too. The economics spill off. I hear this from a lot of people that are down there. The restaurants, the Nadine's, the Fort, the rest. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. It's a good thing.
It just goes to show you that when you have an entity that is in the entertainment business as opposed to just the hockey business, and what a difference it makes, because you just, I mean, for years you could always buy the cheapest seat in the Civic Center and go down to the best seats in the house at any point in time. So it really is, they've done a fantastic job of not only creating a success, but reestablishing a hockey team in the city of Springfield, where it is a hot ticket. It really is. I mean, a few years ago, you could have went and no one could give away their season tickets for you to go to a game.
18 years ago, I had seasons tickets, and you're right. I had to fight to get the seats filled. And my Italian immigrant mentality, oh my God, we're going to waste these empty seats. Give them to somebody, do something, you know? And now I've got clients from outside of town that'll come here. Tennessee would really shock me because they want to see a hockey game, you know, or they're coming to see us for other things, but they're saying, what are we going to do tonight or whatever? Hey, can you get us in to see the Thunderbirds? Pretty cool.
Okay, I think I had a sign that said 10 minutes, but I couldn't read the sign because couldn't see through the shaded thing. There we go. All right, so let me ask you, let's turn to local politics. Some challenges that already that, you know, they haven't come to fruit because signatures haven't been submitted yet and that type of thing. But you're seeing Democrats being challenged by Democrats. Some traditional seats that were never challenged or hardly challenged from the Republican side now seem to have challengers. And so my question is, what's going on?
I think there's a lot of people seeing an opportunity. You know, there's a lot of people.
But there's a Senate race that traditionally you don't see people coming out, especially on the Democrat side, held by Senator Welch. That is there 3 challengers now? Or
I think it's 3 or possibly 4.
A few dozen.
That's
what it feels like.
But traditionally, you don't see those intra-party challenges, right? I mean.
That's a different one. I can't figure out what that is exactly there, but knowing some of the challengers, everyone's from Springfield. It's a larger than Springfield Senate seat, but what you've heard from some of them so far is saying, I'm running for Springfield, you know? That's great, but in West Springfield and in Chicopee, that's going to be tough to sell that piece and all. Senator Welch is an interesting guy because he's the chairman of 2 of the most powerful healthcare committees that there are. He's a player in that regard. And so I think it's great anytime that there's challenges, there's activity. And when you see someone like Welch respond in the way he is, he's running, you know, like he's running the first time, which is great. And that is a good thing often, you know. But on the flip side of this too, when you really look at all the House and Senate seats, just look at Western Massachusetts right now, you know, with 3 open seats to the north of us, 3 chairs, 1 who passed away unfortunately, and 2 who have decided not to run again, you know. So Kogut, who passed, Kulik, and Sybeck leaving, all 3 chairs. There's a lot of activity for those seats, very, very active. You got multiple candidates on both sides. But when you look at all the races, Paul, what I'm amazed at is how many still are not challenged. And that's the norm in Massachusetts. You know, 90% of the legislature goes without a challenge often. And I'm also surprised right now, and I'm sure they're all going to bring their papers in, but I'm surprised at how many incumbents have taken out their papers, there's no challenger, but haven't turned their papers in. Back in the day, if I could get them done in the first 2 or 3 days that they were available and just have it done so you didn't have to worry about it. But I'm surprised by that this year too. It's a little lackluster there. Maybe these other races will make up for it. Certainly Longmeadow, Brian Ash, Allison Werder, and then as I say, those 3 seats in the north. That's hot, and it's up there. It's amazing. You've got the newspaper, you got the weekly newspaper, and then it's all door knocking, mailing, and social media. Boy, you got to put out a lot of shoe leather up there.
Is there an apathy out there? I mean, you know, listen, as someone who lives here and works here, I don't think Massachusetts is being run so economically and efficiently that, you know, everybody's in a kumbaya state, but, you know, the economy isn't bad, so to speak, right? I mean, there's a lot of activity, especially in Western Massachusetts. And I know there is out in Boston. I mean, you go by the number of cranes that are out, parked in the city, right?
Seaport, it's unbelievable.
Right. So if you think about it, does that just create the apathy that, you know, hey, it's okay. We're not in a danger zone. I mean, because typically you need some catalyst, right, to prod those people to get to run and.
Yeah, it's something to inspire them to take the challenge. I guess it's hard to say overall, you know, what might be happening, but I know that, overall we're seeing a lot of women run. And I think, you know, that the current state of things is a big inspiration for that. Women saying, you know, we're not taking, you know, second boat to this, let's take charge and change the way things are done. I think that's, the state of the tone of the country has inspired a lot of women to run. So I think there's that. As far as why aren't a lot of incumbents being challenged in Massachusetts, it's hard to say. I think it could be a lot of factors.
Some could be satisfaction, but I think the other part of it too is apathy, because there's always two economies in politics. I always, in every campaign we get involved in, go back to that great Carville line, it's the economy stupid in the Clinton campaign, right? But there's two economies. There's my economy. How am I doing? Am I okay? If I'm hurting, it's a different ballgame. I'm gonna blame somebody. There's that happens in politics. But overall, the state's in a good spot, in a good position. It's the feeling. As you say, the cranes in Boston, the cranes in Springfield, opportunity and things happening in other places too. Like Holyoke and other spots, they're popping all of a sudden. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not hearing the discussions about how high the taxes are, and you're not hearing those kind of discussions about we're being overtaxed, or there's just not, even in headlines in the paper aren't that significant of point. I mean, other than maybe a scandal in the law enforcement division, which is a whole totally different issue. I mean, but that's not a reason why people might run for a particular office, for example, in general. But you just don't see it, I guess, is really right. I mean, and I'm still surprised that the number of people who aren't being challenged, because some of those seats are definitely challengeable. Where some I think are demographically not in the right spot for a Republican or a Democrat to go after someone. Whether you go out in Worcester County, it's just the opposite of what you might see here. And there's some interesting races out in Worcester County that have, where you actually have Republican against Republican for particular seats. That,
absolutely.
So it's a little bit flipped from, there's a little bastion out there of Republicanism that isn't in Western Mass.
Worcester County's changed a lot, and Elizabeth Warren lost it, in her campaign for the Senate. It's an area that, is very tough, very much more conservative, and you're right, there's some hot races out there. But I'll tell you, between Hartford, Connecticut and Sacramento, California, we do a lot, and we're in different congressionals or different areas. It's different out there. More women coming out of the woodwork, more challenged races, and as you just said too, Paul, Democrat versus Democrat, Republican versus Republican, and then the brouhaha after. Here it's quiet. I don't want to say we're complacent, but we know I don't know, maybe we're watching the rest of the country. Maybe we're satisfied in watching to see what happens.
As bad as
we've done our share,
thing, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I got one final question for you: is that the change in face of media? How hard is it in your business? Whether because people, I mean, reading newspapers is, I don't know if my kids ever remember me reading a newspaper, but, I don't see them picking up the Sunday paper or the Tuesday paper or whatever, right? How hard is it for a media company to stay in the game, not just ahead of the game?
Oh, it's really difficult. I mean, you have to be innovative. You have to be not just on the ball. You have to be ahead of it. You have to be, I have like a company like ours. We're lucky because there's been a big investment in the digital side. It's a company that's not just saying, oh, this is what we're doing today, this is what works today, but they're looking down the road. They're looking 5, 10, 15 years down. As hard as that is, it's hard to know 6 months from now where people are going to be looking, where they're going to be getting their information. But a company has to be ahead of things and invest in the future. It's the only way.
And he's modest, so I'll give the plug, right? It's one of the only newspapers in America whose circulation is increasing. The Republican, and MassLive is now the second largest media outlet, not only in Massachusetts, but in New England. When I'm in Maine on something, I'm going like, where'd you get that from? Well, I just saw it 15 minutes ago on MassLive. These are folks from Maine and New Hampshire. So you've expanded out, and it's hard work to make that piece happen. But I think even the other part of this, though, too, is that you've got a combination of historical perspective with reporters who have been there, and then you've got some of these young folks who have got a lot of energy. That's the other thing I'm seeing. I'm seeing it a few places too. We say, wow, what's happening with the media? All of a sudden, I'm seeing a lot of young folks go to school for it, go to journalism classes, and get into it. And no offense, it doesn't pay a heck of a lot, I don't think, right? Unless that's changed too, I don't know.
No,
but where are these kids coming from?
And,
wow.
It really is.
You're not supposed to say that on TV, that it doesn't pay well, man,
I didn't say that.
I'll take the hit on that.
Very appreciative. It is a tough business, especially in the the early stages of your career. It is really hard. And I think we are seeing more people get into the journalism field right now. In seeing at the college level, I think is wonderful.
I'm amazed at the Elm. So again, recuse myself on the board there, right? The Republican comes in the morning, and I'm seeing kids, students in the student center with the hard copy. And I haven't seen that a lot. I want to go back 2, 3, 4 years, but they're reading the local, and these are kids who are not all from here. They're from other places and whatnot. And I think that's a hopeful kind of a sign overall too.
And the challenges that you face in terms of what's changing, as I explained to someone, my cabinets in in my family room were measured to fit the TV at the time, which was one of those big
Right.
square, big heavy box ones. And now, you know, it's the big, and I can't buy a flat screen. I had to measure to put the little TV in there.
Right.
And then you say, well, I'll go put a big TV on the wall, but in 5 years they could be watching, you know, people are watching TV on your phone and your
There will
iPad.
be a screen. You'll have a
Right.
tiny projector,
Right.
and
You know,
I'll
so
tell you though, too,
that's
even going
amazing.
back to what you talked about in the beginning, media and, you know, real and what's not, and the attacks and the negativity and all that. One thing I am seeing a resurgence of around the country is just this feeling for the local, whether it be the local television station, the local radio station, someone that you know that you trust. You know, Uncle Walter's gone at CBS. You know, there's no more Huntley and Brinkley, et cetera. That feeling that you had for these individuals, and that trust back in the day. But on the local level, I'm just seeing this resurgence to local. I'm seeing a lot of campaigns pay attention to that too. Sure, they're doing the digital and social and all that, but they're saying at the end, where do I come back to? Where do I have to move those last couple of points? I better use local media, whether it be print or electronic.
I think we're seeing some of that too. It's interesting. I think in an era where, you know, you say, who do I trust?
Right.
You know, everybody loves to complain about their local media, no matter where you live, where you are. But at the end of the day, a lot of them tune in or pick up the newspaper or log on, and we're seeing that with some of the
it's
national
my first
news
read
not
of the day,
reported.
man. I'm not saying it because you're here, but you know, I get on the computer,
we
look
appreciate
at
it.
MassLive, you know, and just look at what's happening. And then if there's something a little bit more deeper, then I go and, you know, take a look at it. But it's the first read of the day, absolutely. All right. Well, guys, thank you very much, folks. Thank you for watching on the inaugural episode in this beautiful new set here at LCTV. The money's flowing into LCTV pretty soon. We're going to have chandeliers here and everything. Thank you for watching The Upside. We'll see you on the next show. Have a great day. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Very cool.